I'm Miriam Sherin. Really enjoying being here so far, and spent a long time thinking about what I've been doing with video and with transcripts. So it was really a great opportunity to look back. I want to talk about the role of transcripts in a video club. My work has focused on teacher noticing, how teachers pay attention to what's happening in their classrooms. And I do this a lot through video clubs where I gather groups of teachers together to watch and discuss excerpts of videos from their own classrooms. And I'm asking, so how can video clubs help teachers to develop their noticing skills? And in particular, I do a lot of work around math teachers and their noticing of student mathematical thinking. So just some background. So what do we do with transcripts and transcription? So one key artifact is a transcript of a classroom video clip. I'm not going to talk about this morning, but a lot of work goes into what video clip we're going to show a teacher, and a lot of the work has been researcher driven, a researcher picking the clip, videotaping. So we are creating a transcript of a classroom clip initially sort of as a tool for the researcher noticing. That's how I come to learn about a video clip, is when I say, you know what, I think this is a juicy segment. And now I'm going to sit down and transcribe it and sort of convince myself I think this is going to be interesting for teachers. Then I bring the transcript to teachers at the video club. I hand them a transcript. In addition, we're watching the video. And then later, or more recently, those transcripts have actually become a resource for researcher analysis. Then there's also a transcript of the video club discussion, right, of what the teachers are saying. And this is something that I create following the video club meeting as a resource for researchers. So I'm actually cheating. We're going to watch 3 really short video clips to sort of orient you. So the first one comes from this double-sided sheet that you have. We're going to start in the middle where CD says, 15, did you see how we got that? Okay, that'll work. Does anybody have another way of getting this? Tyrone. So this is the middle of a clip that we showed to teachers. It's a 3rd grade classroom, and the class is working on this problem. You can see it written on the board. If 1/2 inch on a map represents 30 miles, then 1/4 inch represents, and then there's a blank line, miles.
Okay, that'll work. Does anyone have another way of getting this? Tyrone?
I did, because I knew that 50, 1/2 is 50. So, and I also knew that 1/4 would be 25. So I did, so then I knew that 25 was 1/2 of 50. So I did, I did what's 30, what's 1/2 of 30, and I got 15. 15 plus 15, or 15.
You want to come up to the board and write that out for us?
Yeah.
Here you go.
I knew that this equals 50. That equals 20.
But doesn't that say 1/2 inch on the map represents 30 miles?
I know that is 50 in a fraction.
Okay.
And then I knew that 25 was 1/2 of 50. So then I knew that would be 1/2. So I went over and then what would be 1/2 of 30, and that was 15. You don't get it?
So when I watch this video, I am noticing I don't quite understand initially what the student's doing. I love that, right? That's what I'm looking for. Why is the student talking about 25 and 50? I don't see 25 or 50 in this problem on the board. So that's what stands out to me initially. Then I go make a transcript, and then I show it to teachers. Just sort of a meta comment. Some of you were looking at the transcript. Most of you were looking at the video. We're going to come back to that. So I make this transcript, and as I said, it's really, my goal is to capture the student talk about math in this transcript. Looking at it the other day, you can see I don't transcribe everything, right? That comment where the student says candid camera, that's not on here. And it's designed to be used in conjunction with video viewing. I don't have any marks on here. The student goes up to the board. I don't have anything about that he wrote 25, right? So it's supposed to help a teacher make the talk accessible to teachers on sort of a one-time viewing. Okay, so what happens when we work with teachers? So now you're going to watch the teachers watching the clip, and they have the transcript in hand. And it's sort of the middle of their watching.
Okay, that'll work. Does anyone have another way of getting this? Tyrone?
I did. Because I knew that 50, 1/2 is 50. So, and I also knew that 1/4 would be 25. So I did. So then I knew that 25 was half of 50. So I did. I did what's 30. What's half of 30? I got 15. 15.
You want to come up to the board and write that out for us?
I did.
Here you go.
Okay, so if you look on the 5-pager, in the middle it says tape plays. Then there's a little talk that we didn't see. And then at the top of the 2nd page, it says tape ends. So what really struck out to me when I was preparing for this meeting today is that I didn't transcribe anything that's happening there, right? And there's something interesting, I think, going on with the mediation of the transcript as a tool that is supporting the teacher's viewing. I certainly was intentional when I gave teachers the transcripts, but didn't really look at what happens, at least in this context where they're watching the video. Now we're just going to watch 30 seconds from when the teachers are discussing this Tyrone clip, and that's going to come on the 2nd page. My colleague Beth Van Ness is facilitating this, and she says, okay, I think everybody's really interested in what Tyrone's doing. Let's look at that. We're just going to watch about just a little under a minute. Oops.
Let's talk. There were 2 students who shared different strategies, so it seems like we're all pretty interested in what Tyrone did here. Why don't we talk a little bit about what was his strategy? What did he do to try to figure that out?
Well, he was relating it to percents, 50%, 100%, and he essentially set up a ratio. If 15 is the half, how does this change? I'll change this the same way.
And he worked backwards actually, started from forward.
Right.
He worked smaller and smaller.
Which is actually what the other one did as well.
Yeah.
Because it's so a half makes sense.
Right, to them.
But to relate a half and a fourth doesn't make as much sense. So you got to go to the whole and then go to the fourth.
So he knew that a fourth is half and a half.
Right.
And then he went over to the number.
Here's 50, 25.
Here's 30. That was that. Yeah, I bet they
Yeah, I would think, because I thought that's where he was going. Thought he was going to compare it to mine. Like
Yes,
that,
that's where I thought it was going too.
Yeah. What about Julius? What was his strategy?
He's
a
a
class.
he's a student that in the classroom comes before Tyrone. So so the teachers are discussing, they're unpacking what this student Tyrone is doing. And that was very much what we hoped would happen in the video club. And they're doing it without too much prompting from the facilitator. She's saying, what do you think of Tyrone? Let's look at him. And then they're sort of talking to each other. And what we would do is we would transcribe these video club discussions, and we would try to represent all the teachers talking about the video. Perfect. And it really structured the analysis of the video. So the transcript was really a way to jog my memory of what occurred. You can see here, again, a lot of notes of sidebars, but as I read it, I could place the tone, the pitch, the speed, and we coded in a variety of ways. What I want to point out is that it's my confessional statement that my whole work, much of my research is built on this idea that video is this tool. And video clubs where we're discussing video is the lever for getting teachers to look closely at student thinking. And I think that the use of transcript, it wasn't a focus, but it certainly had probably a significant role. If you saw some of the teachers were really looking at it and maybe not participating. Okay, and there's differential use of transcript across teachers, even for the facilitator. You didn't see a clip here, but there were times when teachers even questioned the accuracy of what was written in the transcript. And so for me, this really opens up some new questions for me to explore, which is very exciting. How do the video and the transcript work together? What does this mean for continuing work in this area?
Here.
Yes.
No, just a quick comment on the on presenting transcript. If people are watching video in a seminar, I don't like to have paper transcripts, because then you have a division of people's gaze, and they're down looking at the transcript, which is why even if you get kind of a crude transcript underneath the subtitles, I kind of prefer that. Now, it may be valid, as you're saying, because you can go back over it later and all this, but I'm intrigued of trying to get the whole thing in the same visual field. Yeah, okay.
This is a lovely thing. It's kind of related for me to my comment about Joel's use of all the transcript as a map of things you might find, which is kind of interesting. And I think this is running in the other direction, so that's what interests me. I just wanted to maybe ask or point out or whatever that, so you give transcript as a tool to teachers, which then focuses their attention at some level on things that they might not otherwise pay attention to. And so one of those things is that when you watch video, you can remember some of it, but its organization and the actual things said are hard to keep track of. So if your just transcript is adequate for keeping track, and in particular for quantities and their order within an utterance, you have very little about sequential organization. Like the turn boundaries are not complicated at all, right? And I would say they're not paying any attention to the sequential organization of the talk. They're looking for strategies inside the utterance. And so what the transcript fixes for them is the material out of which the strategy is made. And your transcript is beautifully adequate for that purpose and deliberately adequate for that purpose alone, and you're not doing all this other stuff that we're doing with them, which I just think is fascinating. So there is this ongoing question is, for these kinds of consulting sessions where professionals are learning about their own practices, when are representations adequate for that work?
And what is the work you're trying to do?
And this is deliberate
right?
use of the technology with respect to that adequacy problem.
And you could imagine a Gail Jefferson transcript
Would look
and your
different.
head's exploding.
Yes, exactly. Right. This is even weirder than the video, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it makes me think of one way of asking that question that seems broad is what transcript is adequate for whatever your purpose is. Right. But also I want to broaden that question to what activities that involve transcribing are adequate for the purpose. Because on the one hand, the presentation of one kind of transcript or another can be transformational, depending on, but also getting teachers involved in the work of transcribing, depending on what the purpose is, right? And so if it's paying attention to what a kid, whatever the purpose is.
For sure.
That, I think we all have talked about at various times the ways in which our own attention, our habits and patterns of transcribing transform our own noticing about what's going on. I think about Chuck saying, going back and forth between transcript and video and in a presentations as constantly modifying what he's paying attention to.
I think, of course, the fact that I picked this clip of Tyrone to show them is also structuring their attention, right? It's pretty obvious to them, I think, what they're supposed to look at.
Yeah, I have a related question for you, which is that when you're selecting video and when you're selecting transcript, can you talk a little bit about your own process in terms of what you're trying to whittle down? Because I'm curious about the clarity of what you're trying to show coming through with the
ways that you're representing transcript and video for these particular purposes. So how do you experience that process when you're selecting like clips and transcripts?
So we weren't very explicit about this initially, but since then we've done some studies of actually how we went about selecting video. So we're looking video that has lots of windows into student thinking. So there needs to be student talk, student gesture, student writing, something that students are doing that we could see. And then we're looking for students to be engaged in with mathematics to some depth, right? So they're digging into something. And then we're looking, right, so it's not just completing a routine problem, but maybe using an invented strategy like you saw here. And then there was this issue of clarity that we've thought a lot about. Initially, I always wanted clips that were not clear, right? Because I thought that's what teachers would find interesting. So we're looking for low clarity clips because teachers would work that out and that would be the learning process. But in a later study we found that high clarity clips were also very valuable to teachers, right? They like saying, yep, I know this strategy, this is what I think about it, let's talk about it, I can learn. We also found that clips where students were not working very in depth were highly instructive for teachers, where they had to sort of say, okay, well, why are students working in this way? And they're not talking about very much math and things like that. So I think we've learned a lot about maybe where we started with video clips and what we know now.